Well, this is, interesting. In all my years of making videos, this is the first time where I don't even know where to start. Especially for a game like Crash Twinsanity. Well, I suppose I should just take it from the top.
Crash Twinsanity was a video game I played a lot back in the day. And I mean a lot. As I was getting fully invested into the PlayStation 2 console, I spent a lot of time playing Tekken 5, The Simpsons Hit and Run, and of course, Crash Twinsanity. A lot of hours were put into that game instead of studying and learning how to do math.
1 + 1 = 2.
Very good, buddy. Here's a snack.
Oh, fuck yeah, I love snacks!
Maybe the reason why I feel like this now is because I've been overexposed to this game to a point where I don't even know if I love this game or absolutely despise it. Because, let's be real, as much enjoyment I have with Twinsanity and have so many childhood memories with this game, I can't ignore it anymore. This game feels incomplete and a mess at times. I'm not trying to be controversial or anything like that. I honestly never thought I would reach that conclusion myself, but in order to understand my point of view, let's talk about some Crash Twinsanity. After checking out my old review, I will add that my opinions on that video are still the same to this present day, but obviously a lot has changed over the years, and now I look at Twinsanity with a different perspective. So let's see if my overall thoughts have changed or remain the same. Like I said in my Nitro Kart re-review, link in description, I won't be discussing what happens in the beginning portions of the story, but I can tell you what I think about it. And yeah, I like the story. It's definitely a lot more interesting in comparison to other Crash games on the PlayStation 2. Cortex realizes there's a bigger threat with the evil twins, which they somehow remind me of Pinky and the Brain, and Cortex and Crash put aside their differences for the greater good. You don't often see that type of storytelling in video games where the protagonist and the main villain join forces. Hey, there's a top 10 video for ya. You do witness some side stories like with Engine and Trophy and Embryo for example, as they try to get some treasure, although that doesn't translate very well to the player. You'll understand why later on. But when first starting to move Crash Bandicoot, you'll come to notice that you don't get spawned in a warp room and choose what level to participate in. Instead, you can fully explore a much open area with platforms, gems, and nice environments. It's still linear as it all leads to the one destination, but I definitely like this idea of checking out a bigger area. Reason being is because I was so used to seeing a level selection in a hub world with Crash Bandicoot, and I have this feeling that if they did it again here, then it would have been stale in my opinion. Now, if you notice, there's a line that moves around every time I head forward. That's just my PlayStation 2 emulator playing games with me and mucking around, so I hope it doesn't get too distracting for you.
And everything does seem to be going well. Oh, until you get up to this section.
Call me thrice, and I shall grant you special powers.
The designs of each area you visit are very nice, and some of them are creative too. From Insanity Island, the Iceberg Lab, Academy of Evil, and Twinsanity Island. They're nicely laid out, colourful to look at, and looks presentable. But I do feel like Twinsanity Island looks a bit empty and somewhat unfinished, but it became alright when heading inside the Evil Twins lair and partaking in some puzzles. The controls when moving Crash Bandicoot around are good. It's not as tight as the original trilogy because it can be floaty at times, but I don't mind the controls in Twinsanity. The gameplay here can be described as, well, interesting once again. Half of the gameplay sees you controlling Crash, jumping around, spin attacking boxes and enemies, that sort of thing. And the second half is about teamwork as well as playing as Cortex and a new character named Nina. Let's talk about teamwork. Crash and Cortex help each other out to get to the next section. And what I mean by that is literally fighting each other as you roll down. The different types of teamwork abilities you can do with Cortex is rolling down while they beat each other up and guide them without getting seriously damaged. You can use Cortex to spin attack, slam attack, and can even throw him to the other side of the area to grab gems or turn switches. I don't think he's supposed to be standing from my point of view. There's a 2D section where you have to help Cortex to reach to the other section without getting hurt. You can ride Cortex like a surfboard to reach to the bottom of the hill, and by how things are looking, I feel sorry for Cortex's future kids. And finally, when Cortex gets stuck in a bowl, you have to push him along to the pipes to unlock platforms to keep the plot moving forward. If that sounds like a lot to you, then you're probably right. But I'm not even finished with the gameplay. Not even close. Later on in the game, you'll switch over to Cortex, and this is considered as the first time you play as him in a 3D environment, without anything to do with racing and party games. Unfortunately, playing as Cortex can feel underwhelming, as all he does is use his blaster to shoot down enemies. He's not as agile as Crash, so for me, it felt like the pacing slowed down for me. I do like when he loses all of his ammo, he just puts his arm in the air and runs like hell. And then you have Nina as a playable character as well. Think of her similar to Batman on how you use your grapple hook to ascend to the top of the building. She can also use her robotic hands to hit enemies and extend her arms to hit bells. Nina's gameplay section is fine. I wish Nina would have more gameplay time, but it is what it is. And that's the normal thing with Twinsanity. Everything comes and goes, so it's just one of those games where you have to get used to the constant gameplay changes. Overall, the gameplay can seem random as it goes from different gameplay mechanics to another and another in a span of 5 minutes, but I do enjoy some of the gameplay elements here, like the snowboarding and moving Cortex around, even if they do reuse it towards the third act. But like my comment earlier, I felt that if they just stuck to the traditional method, it would have been stale at this point.
You probably have noticed the first thing when it comes to Cortex, and that is what is up with his voice.
Crash Twinsanity also marks the first time we get to hear Lex Lane instead of Clancy Brown. I'm not going to pick between the two on which one was better because they both sound great. Clancy was dark, mysterious, and also had some nice charm, while Lex offered more vocal range to the character, allowing him to have a bigger reaction to situations.
Throw me over there. Trust me. We're pals, right?
So I would go on to add that Cortex and the writing are one of the biggest strengths in Twinsanity. This game is just absolutely hilarious, breaking the fourth wall, delivering iconic one-liners, and even going on as to make fun of the Wrath of Cortex.
The check bounced. Are you sure? Well, the past few years have kind of been slow. Wrath of Cortex didn't do as well as we'd hoped, and... Fish?
And even replaying this game, I still find myself laughing out loud. Hell, I even laughed at a fart joke of all things. Me, a 25-year-old male, is chuckling over a fart gag.
How could things get any worse?
And still, with the humor this game presents, it never feels boring for me. Even if it does start to get tiresome, Twinsanity always finds a way to make me smile.
And another talking point to mention is the soundtrack. And when it comes to the soundtrack, the music can be pretty divided.
It's another interesting topic to discuss when mentioning Crash Twinsanity's music. The entire OST's instruments are a cappella, being performed by Spiralmouth. And with this kind of music, you're either going to love it for having a nice beat and an atmospheric feel to the entire experience, or you're gonna hate it because it's weird, repetitive, and sounds like a bunch of random farts. I can understand both parties' point of view, so I suppose it depends on your taste of what kind of music you enjoy. I'm one of those people who absolutely loves the soundtrack here. To me, it just sounds awesome.
Can actually taste a bit of hair in my mouth. Should probably get a haircut soon.
Throughout each area, you can collect gems. There's 6 gems in every level, and collecting enough of them will unlock concept art and storyboards to witness. Sounds cool, but collecting the gems doesn't feel rewarding. If anything, I end up wasting a few of my life counters just to collect one gem. Twinsanity features a handful of bosses, and there's some cool varieties. You'll be facing Engine, the giant Tiki monster, Madame Amberline, and many more. Cortex, who is usually the final boss in a Crash game, ends up being the first boss, which is a nice different approach. However, most of the bosses have the same pattern of doing the exact same thing 3 times until you defeat the boss, which does feel repetitive. My favourite boss would have to be Dingodile, because even though you go through the same process every time you try again, and he doesn't change his style, at least with every hit you give to Dingodile, he does a different method, so his battle will seem unpredictable at first.
So about this game as a whole, I have to mention one of its biggest weaknesses. And for me, it halts it from being a good video game.
Are you gonna talk about the glitches yet?
Yes, Invisible Guy, I'm gonna talk about the glitches just a bit later on.
Well, you better.
The game can be pretty short, with finishing the game around 3 to 4 hours depending on your playstyle, but that's not the reason why. If you have noticed, Crash Twinsanity is simply unfinished. I constantly got distracted or asking questions to myself from start to finish. Like Aku Aku I mentioned earlier, no matter how many masks you obtained, if you run into a nitro crate, you'll die instantly. This is something you'll never see in any other Crash game, and even if I do end up getting 3 Aku Aku masks, there's no upbeat music to make you feel invincible for a limited amount of time. When you die and go back to the previous checkpoint, the music just resets itself, which is something you don't really see in a Crash Bandicoot game, because the music in older Crash games, and even the newer ones too, does keep going. Also, hope you like unskippable cutscenes, because that's the normal thing this game presents. It's not that bad, but it will get annoying once seeing it again and again, like the Precursor Legacy on how you can't skip cutscenes at all. The Embryo and End Trophy intro before their boss battle, Embryo drinks a potion, but there was no sound effect during the transformation, making it a bit awkward to look at. It's also weird that they show up out of nowhere and disappear afterwards, making them feel like afterthoughts, which shouldn't be the case. Remember all the villains you see in the first act, like Tiny Tiger, Oxide, and Polar for whatever reason? Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing those characters, because that's the last time you'll be seeing most of them in the entire game. This feels very clickbaity to me. You present all these potential storylines and what type of bosses you'll be facing, but then it just takes it away from me. Almost like taking candy from a baby. I mentioned Twinsanity Island looking empty, and yeah, it looks like this place just needs more environment or objects to make it stand out. But what's probably the worst out of the bunch is after leaving the academy and entering the ship, Crash stands around with nothing else to do. Sure, it's only 15 seconds, but it's a very painful time waster, and really noticeable. I'm sorry, but how did the developers not see this and said to themselves, oh, that doesn't look appealing, better get rid of it before we release the game?
Are you talking about the glitches now?
Okay, fine, I'll talk about it! And of course, you also have the weird glitches and bugs that can totally transform your gameplay into something either pretty funny or just downright annoying. Are you happy now, Invisible Guy?
Yeah!
And yet, the reason behind all of that is due to Traveller's Tales. Oxford Studios had a deadline for when the game will be released, and I'm sure they tried their best with given the time frame, but this is what they had towards the end.
But here's another kicker. Apparently, Crash Twinsanity was going to have even more features.
This is starting to take me back to Spyro and to the goddamn piece of frickin' shite Dragonfly on how that game was meant to have more levels and hub worlds. You could see the similarities between the two. Now, I'm sure we've all heard about them. Gonna Big Coco level was cut, as well as additional gameplay features and more dimensions to explore. There's a lot of discussions about this topic for years online on how it could have made the game better or the possibility of different varieties. And yeah, I'll admit, I do ponder on that idea too, and even at times, I wonder if Twinsanity should get a remake with all the cut content, but at the same time, wouldn't that make it a completely new game? I mean, sure, it'll look like Crash Twinsanity, but it'll mostly be a new experience in that game. Crash Twinsanity 2.0, if you will. And even checking out the cut content that was supposed to be in the game, half of it would work, but the other half, I personally feel like it wouldn't work. I would imagine it could drag the gameplay down. I feel like when it comes to an actual critique of this game, I don't want to look at it at what it could have been, I'm looking at this game at what we currently have. And at the end of the day, this is the final product we have. And because of the constant cuts and changes within Twinsanity, I feel that the final product really did a lot of harm to itself. And that was Crash Twinsanity. This game reminds me of a fast food restaurant. I know it may not look clean, but I still keep coming back to it. And a few reasons why I come back to Twinsanity is the writing, the comedy, seeing Cortex, and the soundtrack. There are a couple of areas I wish could have been explored on, like improving the boss battles, and I would like to see more gameplay of Nina, but again, it does come back to its development. This is probably going to be up there as one of the biggest missed opportunities in the video gaming industry. So many ideas were on the table and so many were removed, and yet the only thing that suffered towards the end was the game itself. To me, what we have is an unfinished and somewhat broken product, and to quote Cortex and Twinsanity, they simply just ran out of time. And time is something I believe they really needed. In my old Crash Twinsanity review, I gave it a 7 out of 10, saying it's not the best Crash game, but it was still good nonetheless. Fast forward 5 years later, and in my opinion, it's an okay 3D platform game. I like that it creates new ideas to the 3D platformer formula, and sometimes it works, but when you compare this game to the old Crash Bandicoot trilogy, this is an average Crash Bandicoot game that did not live up to its full potential.
So with that being said, I'll be giving Crash Twinsanity the updated score of 6 out of 10. I still really like this game, but it's an absolute random mess. But to me, in my humble opinion, I feel like this game should not be ignored. Give this game a try and form your opinion if you like the game or not. Let me know how you go. But anyways, that's gonna wrap up this video. I thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on Instagram, the link will be down in the description box below, and as always, take care, thank you for watching, and I will catch you all next time.